Hey, what's up guys? It's Josh. Welcome back to another Minecraft Let's Play video. This is going to be episode 4, I think. It's been a while since I've made one.
This first story, the name of it is I Followed a Woman to a Private Pool and I Can't Find the Door. It seems pretty interesting. It's pretty long, so I'm going to read it. Okay, start off with it. I kill people for a living, and I've never been afraid of anything in my whole life until now. I know, but stick with me here. I'm not gonna dive into all the personal shit leading up to this story, not because I'm worried about boring you. In fact, I think you'd probably love to hear it. I'm an interesting guy, but frankly, it's not your business. All you need to know is that I've always liked to fight, but fighting doesn't make money on the street, and I was tired of being broke. So I graduated to killing, and I took to it like a fish to water. I do it clean, and I never touch anybody who I wasn't hired to touch. I have contacts. People go to my contacts for requests, not me. I'm no good with people anyway. And if I'm keen on the job, I take it. That's how this gig started. I don't quite know where to start a story like this, but it seems natural to begin like the day in the morning. I got a small place on top of a bistro called Virgo's. Sounds like a nice place from the name, I know, but it smells like hot dogs and cat piss. I don't mind. I only sleep there, and when I'm sleeping I can't smell it at all. I rose early on a Sunday. I saw frost on the window, so I threw on a coat and walked quickly downstairs, dipping into Virgo's for a cup of coffee. I had a meeting. Early, Mike said. He ran the place. He always had something to say. I don't think your coffin opened till 9. I laughed along with him. Some days you remember everything else is getting by just like you, trying to make things pleasant, and other days you forget. That day I remembered. Mike burnt the coffee, my reward for being nice. Next time he made a joke, I'd sock him in his fucking face. When I arrived, my contact was waiting for me. We didn't like to meet at the same place more than once every few months. This time it was at the park. He was pushing his daughter on the swing set. As I got closer, I heard her ask her dad who I was. A friend, he said. Just a minute, money. I don't know what that is. He walked over to the slide where I was waiting, just sat there, sneakers dangling in the swing, too short to brush the wood chips, turning to his head like an owl to watch us. As I spoke to her dad, I kept glancing over his shoulder at her to smile. She didn't smile back. I had a stupid urge to make faces. I didn't. You got one of your own? He asked as he lit a cigarette. You shouldn't ask things like that, I said plainly. Alright, he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. Here, he handed me a sheet of paper with an address written on it. 5 o'clock. Get rid of this when you can. I nodded and waved goodbye to his daughter. She just kicked her feet and stared. My target was a woman. I don't often kill women, but I don't mind it. Every Sunday at 5 o'clock, this woman liked to go for a swim in an indoor pool, winter, spring, summer, and fall. Apparently she had some money. I didn't care. I take it as a personal point of pride if I know absolutely nothing more about my targets than the bare necessities. Not from any moral code. I've killed plenty of people I know, even friends, but just plain lack of interest. It came as a surprise that this pool was located in an industrial district. I guess looking back, it should have been my first clue that something was off, but I won't kick myself over it. I've been sent to every corner of the city for work, from posh country clubs to crack dens, and the ultimate truth remains that anyone, and I mean anyone, is one mistake away from being dead. I still had some time, so I went back to my place to make some special preparations. I took a broom from a stoop of Virgo's in one hand and my duffel bag in another. I trotted down the alley until I reached the dumpster. I sprang open the lid and heard the scuttle of little rat paws as they scattered from the light. I swung the broom high from over my head and smashed down as hard as I could on a particular fat-looking dude who had his head stuck in a takeout box. He was still as a doormat. I opened my duffel bag to grab plastic gloves and plastic bag. I scooped the guy up, sealed him in, and threw him in my duffel along with my normal job materials. Leather gloves, a length of wire, and a .32 shotgun. I didn't expect I would need the gun, but I always took it with me. You might expect me to carry more, but it's not necessary. You wouldn't believe how easy it is to kill a person. I swiped a car, some ugly brown Kia, and drove downtown an hour early to scout the place out. From what my contact said, I expected it to be a dump, but when I parked between two old beater cars and saw the windowless storefront and the leaning letters in cracked blue paint that plainly read pool, I was sure I came to the wrong place. She was supposed to be driving a Mercedes, but I didn't see it anywhere yet. I wanted to go inside, at least to see the door, but I didn't want to be seen snooping. My contact had explained the layout well enough. She had a private pool inside, some special arrangement. Down an employee half hallway that was just behind the desk, locked with special key, there was a room that was reserved just for her. My contact said that door was the only entrance and the only exit. No windows, not an ideal spot. Normally I'd just kill her somewhere else, her driveway or a grocery store parking lot. Somewhere I could get away right after, but before I walked away from my contact, he grabbed my shoulder. One more thing, he had said. Get her in the pool room before she touches the water. Understand? Don't let her in the water. Another clue that things were off, and one so obvious he basically beat me over the head with it. As I sat there waiting, I wondered why it mattered so much that she stayed dry. I thought maybe they didn't want to drain the pool from the blood, but if that was the case, there wasn't any reason it had to be in the room, and certainly not before the swan. What difference did it make? Let me mute my phone real quick. Maybe the client hated her so much he wanted to deprive her of her joy just before she entered, like some sort of Tantalus-style torment. Or maybe she was like a gremlin, just add water for an instant monstrous surprise. It didn't matter why it needed to be done this way. It only mattered that I did it. After a little while, the hum of the heater started and the lack of anything to do started to get me a little. Okay. I startled myself awake. The Mercedes was just arriving. I almost missed her. God damn it. What a monumental stupid mistake on my end. I should have got a second coffee from Virgo's, burnt or not. I was acting nervous. Now I used to back when I was green. Thinking back on it, maybe part of me knew how weird this job was. I watched her swing open the car door. She had no coat. She was wearing a translucent swim cover with a striped blue-white bikini underneath. Her skin was unreasonably tan. I could see the soft flecks of muscle in her legs as she swung out her sandaled foot and manicured toes. I will admit that I was stirred, but I don't let these things get to me. She would make a beautiful corpse. I snatched the duffel bag from my passenger seat and I followed her inside. I caught the door just before it closed. The pool was worse inside than out. The floor was covered in cracked tiles with brown grout. The walls were weeping with humidity, and the towels folded on the shelves behind the desk were basically rags. The air was chlorine itself. To the left of the desk was the entrance to the main pool. I saw through the window that there were only one or two families inside. To the right was the locker, and finally behind the desk and straight down the hall was a door. That's the one. My target was talking casually with the clerk when she noticed me behind her. I couldn't help but note the joy on his face. He was pretty into her, and if I can tell something like that, then it's really obvious. "Oh, you go ahead, sir," she said, and gestured me forward. I guess she didn't want people watching her sneak to the back. There was a sign above the desk. $12.50 for adults. I didn't want to pay that. Is it cool if I hit the locker room first?" I said, half to her, half to the clerk. "I really gotta use the bathroom." "Go for it, man," he said, flippantly, and as soon as he did, he seemed to forget I existed. "Thanks, bro," I said, flashing a surf's up gesture. Not sure why, my target laughed at that, and then they resumed their conversation as I walked into the locker room. The room was completely empty. There was a wall of beaten-up lockers with tiny padlocks on one end, a couple of urinals in a stall in the corner, and a row of showers on the other wall. Perfect. I zipped open the duffel and pulled out the rag. Blood had thickened in the bottom of the bag. I guess it was cold in the trunk. His limbs were all tense and his tail was curled up in his mouth. Don't know what that means. I put the plastic gloves back on and slipped the rat out of the bag into one of the shower stalls. He plopped down on the linoleum with a wet plop. His chilled blood slowed out of the bag in vicious clumps, and I shook him all over until the tile was painted. I needed to keep the clerk busy for a while. I took the gun, the wire, and the gloves and tucked them in my waistband, leaving my duffel on a bench. Then I glanced over the locker room. My target had finished talking and she was headed to the back. Perfect timing. But then, almost as if she sensed me, she turned around quickly, staring me right in the eye. I was frozen. She made no expression. She turned away, walking down the hall fast. She had a keen eye for peeping toms, I guess. It seemed natural that a woman like that would develop such an awareness of perverts. I didn't think she suspected me of anything more than that. I walked out of the lockers with disgust on my face. "Hey buddy, I've never been here before, but I don't think there's supposed to be a bloody rat corpse in the shower, is there?" I said. The clerk was dumbfounded. "A what?" "A rat. R-A-T. Big as your face, man. Looks like something stomped him to death or something. You're gonna need a mop." "Oh God," he sighed. "Again?" He grunted and grabbed a bucket and a mop from the closet. I'm gonna wait here if it's cool with you. Hurry, before the pretty lady sees." He scoffed as he shouldered past me and into the locker. That distraction should give me plenty of time to slip in, kill her, and slip out before he gets back to the desk. I slipped behind the desk. I was a little worried that she might have already slipped into the pool, but there was no helping it. They saw the rushed monkey drop the banana. The door was painted in matte black. The sound of children splashing had dampened as I stalked down the hall. I could hear only the turning of the latch as I opened the door. It could have been locked, I thought. I was so stupid and amateur for letting that slip my mind. It could have been locked, you fucking moron, but it wasn't. I had my shoulder against the wood as I eased it open. It was heavy enough for a bank vault. Matter of fact, I'd entered the similar doors before in high security buildings like server rooms, casino offices, the type of place. I guarantee that things had been reinforced with a steel plate. One thing I never saw before, though, was a door like that left unlocked. I didn't even see a lock or a mechanism, electronic or otherwise. I'm going to zoom into this so I can read it better. Darkness at the door swung open, until finally I saw the blue rippling glow of the pool. It was lit along the sides with white light, and it shimmered like heat waves on a desert horizon. I'm sorry for getting poetical, but the image of it, I see it when I close my eyes. With the door now fully open, the hallway light should have spilled in, but I cast no shadow in the dark tilted ground. It's like by entering the room I left the rest of the world, and now it was only me, the pool, and my target. She wasn't swimming yet, but she was close. She was facing away from me, her figure just a silhouette against the blue. I breathed in, and then I went and did something I never did before. I got lost in the moment. I know I could have had the wire on her back before she jumped, if I had just moved, but I couldn't. I was out of step. Before I knew it, my chance was blown, and she was bending down to dive. "Ma'am," I cried. My hand fell to the gun in my waistband. She looked at me over her shoulder. Her features were underlit by the pool lights. I saw her eyes flick down at the gun, glinting on my hip. Her face didn't flinch. Stone cold, man. Then before I could react, she dove into the pool. As soon as she touched the water, it went black. I blinked. I thought my vision had gone out. It was completely hopelessly dark. I turned around for a switch, but there was no hallway, no desk. The room had closed silently behind me. I didn't hear the sounds of swimming. I didn't hear anything. I tottered in the black with my hands extending, feeling for the door. But I could feel nothing. It should have been right there, right behind me. But I shuffled forward 10, 20, 30 steps, and still there was nothing but darkness ahead of me, and darkness behind. My breathing quickened. I started to panic. I guess, but only a little. I'm not afraid of the dark. It never bothered me, but this was more than dark. I ran my hands along my shirt to make sure that I hadn't become darkness too. I was relieved to feel the cotton on my clothes, the hair along my arm, and the hard impression of my tools against my waist. Good. I stopped moving and forced myself to be sensible. My target knew I was coming. That wasn't strange at all. My people who end up as my targets aren't surprised when they see me in their last moments. I guess this lady was the same way, no matter how unassuming she appeared. So I guess this was a trap. Maybe not a trap, but an evasive maneuver at least. The pool lights were remote, but I saw nothing in her hands, and as she brought them together to dive, so maybe by her feet. There could be a switch beside the pool. That must be it. But where did the door go? It could have disappeared. I was so confident that I had done a 180, but thinking back on it then, I couldn't be convinced that I had fixed my feet correctly. I must have turned left and started walking parallel to the wall. So that meant the wall should be 90 degrees left. I reached out and felt nothing. I turned to left a little and walked a few paces, reaching out again. Nothing more. Nothing again, but more left, more paces, more nothing. At that point, my panic was rearing up again. I had no idea where I was in the room anymore. And even worse, I had no idea where the pool might be. My feet became lead. When I was a kid, my stepdad would take me out to the lake every winter for a week to ice fish. No pansy shit with the shanty and the heater. We drove out in the Chevy, grabbed the auger and the yard chairs, and dropped our lines. It wasn't every winter that the ice was thick enough, though. When it was a thin year, we would stay inside with mom and play board games, drink coca, and watch old VHS tapes. I hated that shit. One thin year, I think I was 10, I decided there was no such thing as a thin year. I grabbed my rod and tackle box and set out for the ice. Behind their backs, the plan was to shuffle out with a big rock and toss her in. Instant ice hole. It was going swimmingly, and I was starting to fantasize about my lake record walleye until I heard a crack. I looked back at the shore in horror. What must have been 15 yards felt like 15 miles. I held the rock to my chest and erased my feet across the ice. Each step was another certainty that the ice would give way and I would be trapped under the sheet. One mistake away from my death. In my head, this was so much worse. Logically, even if I didn't fall in, I could easily grab the edge of the pool and pull myself out. Wet and frustrated, but safe, I didn't need light to do that. But then again, that's how I felt about the door too. So I didn't move. I wasn't scared. I was rational. My plan was to wait. I bent over, feeling the cool tile floor around me, turning in a circle until I was certain I was surrounded by solid gold. Then I sat down. One entrance, one exit, no lock on the door. If she wanted to stay in here with me for a while, that was fine by me. I'd get her one way or another. This is unusual, I said. I felt the rattle in my skull, but it felt like my words dripped from my lips into my lap. There was no reverberation in the darkness, and there was no response. I kept going anyway. I always liked the pool, I continued. It's a nice smell, isn't it? As soon as I said that, I realized that the chlorine smell was gone. I smelled nothing at all, apart from the cold tile under me. I was a sensory deprivation chamber. It's a good place to die, I said quiet. I started to feel stupid. I didn't know if she heard me, but I thought maybe she did. I decided to shut up. I was sure the clerk had cleaned the rat by that point. I would begin to consider how I might leave after I killed this lady. In the case that I found her in the dark, I would get her with the wire, or maybe just my hands, and then I'd go hunting for either the door or the light panel on the floor. Even if I found neither, I figured the clerk would be in there, and to check on her eventually. I would probably have to kill him too. Unfortunate. In the case that she made for the door, I would see the hallway light, and then I'd know where the door was. If she ran, I'd chase her and I'd kill her. Witness or not, and I'd skip town for a while. I'd done it before. I had a forgettable face. I agree, she said. I straightened with a jolt. I looked over her, but I couldn't tell where the sound had come from. There you are, I said joyfully. I thought I lost you. I thought I lost you too, she said. It seemed to come from all around me. I had her talking at least. Do you always swim in the dark? Sometimes, she said. And this time I thought I knew where she was. Should try it. The water is fine tonight. You're a quiet swimmer, I said as I rose softly to my feet. Who said I was swimming? She replied. It sounded like she was right in front of me, so I closed I could reach her. I swung out a fist wildly. Nothing. Oh, that would have hurt, she laughed now from somewhere else entirely. That made me nervous. Had she seen me? I couldn't hear anything but her voice, so surely she couldn't hear me swing. The image of her treading water in the clunky night vision headset almost made me laugh. Still, though, I couldn't help but feel like our footing wasn't as even as I thought. Suddenly I saw a light. The room remained covered in darkness, but the shape of the light was unmistakable. The door was opening. I saw the shadow of her body against it. Wait for me, I laughed. She didn't know it, but she had just lost the game. I began to run after her. She couldn't shut it on me now. I was too close. She had misjudged my position, and with the door revealed it was over. It was only a few steps before I felt the water. I fell headfirst into the pool. The water rushed over my face and up my nose like a saline rinse, warm and salty. This was ocean water. My clothes clung to me as I thrashed to orient myself. I kicked and swam until my head broke the surface and I was treading water. No need to panic yet. I turned around and paddled for the ledge. Where did it go? Stroke after stroke, and still nothing. The water was a pulsating ink. I turned around in the water. The light was still there. Her shadow was still there too. You're stuck with it tonight, she said, giggling to herself. The light began to thin into a silver. Wait, I cried, spitting out my water frantically. Her voice came again like it was inside my head. Just keep swimming. It's not to let it find you. I could hear the smile on her face.
This third story is by Solar Drip 1. I slept at my friend's house. The title is I slept at my friend's house and we weren't allowed to leave the bedroom after 9 p.m. I soon found out why. We had been friends for 13 years, and in those years I had not once slept at his house. So why the sudden invite, I asked. I settled the duffel on my shoulder and he held the door. My parents are going out, he said, and the words came out of him in a rush. Figured it's about time you saw my humble abode. The house was not a humble abode. It was a great white clapboard house that stood on the land as if it had been there forever and the town had grown around it. Old oaks stood guard over the grounds and their shadows fell across the yard. Inside the house there was a small smell of old wood and polish and something more besides a smell like turned earth from after a rain. His mother was a woman built of small bones, and she carried a frantic smile that did not touch her eyes. She moved about the dim room with a nervous energy, asking of drinks and of snacks. His father sat in a leather chair, and he did not speak. He was a large man whose eyes were dark, and still they followed us as we passed. I heard his mother whisper words to him, urgent and low, but I could not make them out. At 7 o'clock, his parents left. So, what's the plan? I asked. I dropped my bag on the floor of his room. The room was a small island of the ordinary in that house, with his posters and its rumpled bed and the console set before the television. It was the only place that did not feel as if it belonged to the dead. Pizza, video games, the usual, Leo said. He knelt and woke the machine. He moved with a forced calm, but I saw the cording in his neck. We ate the pizza and played the games, and for a time I did not think of the house or of the silence that lay coiled in its other rooms. For a time it was only the two of us and the sounds from the screen. Then near to 9 he paused the game. "Hey man," he said. He would not look at me, but he worked the controller in his hands. "There's just one weird rule my parents have." "Weird rule?" "Yeah." He raised his head and his eyes were serious as a stone. "After 9 p.m. we have to be in here, in the bedroom. We can't leave. Not for anything. Not for the bathroom, not for a drink, nothing. The door stays closed until sunrise." I stared at his face and looked for the jest that was not there. "You're kidding, right? What if I have to pee?" "Pee now," he said. His voice was flat. He gestured with his chin to an empty bottle on his desk. "And after 9, you use that." The laugh I had in my throat died there. "Dude, that's insane. Why?" He shrugged his shoulders, but his motion was counterfeit. They're just super weird about security. Old house, you know, they think it's drafty. Drafty? I knew he was lying. I just didn't know why. Downstairs, a clock began to chime the hour, and his head snapped toward the door. Bong, bong, bong. I don't know what that means. I guess he was on his feet. He was on his feet before the 9th bell had sounded its notes. Note, he crossed the room and closed the door. He slid a heavy bolt of steel into its housing, and the sound it made was final. "There," he said. A sweat had bloomed on his brow, and he breathed out the word, "We're good." "Leo, what the hell is going on?" I demanded. "Nothing, man. Just a weird rule," he said. He would not look at the door. He turned up the sound of the game until it was a roar in the small room. But I did not see the game. I saw only the bolted door, and I felt a coldness take root in my gut. The house was quiet again, but it was not the same. This was a listening quiet, a waiting quiet, and in the dark heart of that house, something waited, and we were locked in that room and waiting with it. An hour passed, and there was no sound from the house. The fear went out of Leo slowly, and he played the game with a feigned calm that did not sit right on him. We played on in that silence, and a vexation grew in me at the foolishness of it all. "You really need to tell your parents this is a certifiable way to raise a serial killer," I said. He gave back a fake smile. "Tell me about it." Then came a sound from the room below. It was soft and measured thumping on the boards of the main hall. "What's that?" I whispered. Leo played on. He stared at the screen, and his fingers worked the buttons as if he did not hear. "It's nothing. House settling." "That's not the house settling, Leo." The sound ceased. In the quiet, I could hear the blood in my own ears. Then there came a new sound, which was a dragging sound, a scraping of some great weight across the wood floor beneath us as a heavy thing with broken feet. I muted the television. "Okay, that's definitely not the house," I said. Leo set the controller down upon the carpet. His face was pale in the shifting light of the screen. "Just ignore it, Liam. Please, it goes away if you ignore it." "What? What is it? What goes away?" Before he could answer, it spoke. The voice came from the hallway, faint at first, on the other side of our door. "Leo, honey?" I did not move. The voice was his mother's voice. "Leo, sweetheart, your father and I came home early. I bought you boys some warm cookies. Open the door." I looked at Leo and saw a boy cast in tallow. He stared at the door as if it were the gate of hell itself, and he raised a trembling finger to his lips and shook his head. "Leo, that's your mom," I whispered. "Don't be silly, sweetie. We're inside," the voice said. "It was just outside the door now. I just baked your favorites, chocolate chip. They're getting cold." The scraping from below had stopped. There was only the sweet persuasion of that voice in the silent house. But the voice was wrong. There was a terrible perfection in its sound, like a memory of a voice and not the voice itself. Then came the knocking. It was a soft and wet sound on the far side of the door, as if a piece of meat was striking the wood. "Leo, Liam, are you boys all right in there? You've been awfully quiet." "Leo," I mouthed, but no sound came out. He sat upon the floor like a man made of stone, his eyes wide with a plea that had no words. He looked like something trapped. The knob of the door turned once to the left and once to the right. Then it began to rattle, and its fitting with a growing violence. "Boys, this isn't funny," the voice said. The sweetness broke in it. Then it was replaced with a hard and ragged edge. "Open the door." A great blow struck the door, and the frame of it groaned on the wall. I scrambled away from it on my hands and feet until my back was against the far wall of the room. The voice changed. It spoke again, and the voice was a ruin, a low and guttural thing that gurgled in its throat. I know, I know you're in there." The wet tapping began again, faster now and frantic. With it came a thin and keening whine, a sound like wind through a crack in the world, and from the dark gap beneath the door a black and viscous fluid began to seep into the room. It was thick as oil, and it carried the smell of the grave, a wet soil, and of things that rot in the earth. Bro, getting notifications, and they're very distracting. Leo moved. He crawled to the bed and pulled the blankets over him and became a small and shuddering shape in the dim room. He had gone into his own darkness. On the other side of the door, the thing fell silent. I knew it was not gone. I knew that in my bones it was there in the darkness beyond the door, and it was waiting. I kept my back to the far wall, and I watched the door. My breath was a small and panicked thing in my throat. On the bed, Leo was a trembling knot of blankets and fear. For me, this was a night's journey into that darkness. For him, it was the place he lived. A fool's curiosity, which has been my ruin, more than once wearied with the terror. A need to see the shape of the thing that haunted us. A dreadful truth was better than not knowing. I went forward on my stockinged feet, and the old boards did not whisper. "Liam, no," came a voice from the bed, muffled by the cloth. Don't look." But I would look. I knelt upon the floor, and the reek of the grave was stronger. I lowered my head to the cold brass of the keyhole. About to see what's about to happen. Let's see. At first, there was only the dim hall and the moonlight that fell in a pale blade from the window at its end. Then it stepped into the narrow view. It was not a man, nor was it a beast. It was a thing that was built of sticks and of a shadow, impossibly tall and thin. Its limbs were the limbs of a winter tree, and its body was a gyre of dust and night that had no true form. It wore its mother's floral apron, the cloth stretched over a hollow space where a chest should be. It wore its father's hunting cap set upon a head that was only a clot of moving dark. It had no face, only a void. In one of its twig-like hands it held a picture I had seen on the wall, a portrait of the family. It held this picture before the void where its face should be, and it wore the smile of Leo's mother for its own. From its body it put forth a long and blackened twig of an arm, and it tapped upon the door. I threw myself back from the door and clapped a hand to my mouth to keep the gorge from rising. My mind could not hold the shape of what I had seen. This was no creature that had entered the house. This was the house itself, a parasite that wore the stolen keepsakes of the dead or the soon-to-be dead for its raiment. From the door a new voice whispered, and the blood in me went to ice. "Liam, why are you hiding in there? Your mother is so worried about you." It was my own mother's voice. Perfect. The voice she used when I was a child and sick with fever. the call to supper from a life I would not see again. A wave of homesickness and of horror washed over me when I wanted to be home and I was not. And the ringing in the hall gave a low chuckle that was the sound of dry leaves scuttling on a stone walk. It knew it had found the part of me that was soft. "Let me in, Liam," my mother's voice whispered, a sound of love and poison. I've come to take you home." I fell back to the wall and slid to the floor, and I felt the heat of shame in my thighs where my body had betrayed me. I looked at the trembling shape on the bed. The bottle he had offered, it had not been a joke. It had not been a rule, but a kindness, a tool for survival, for he knew all of it. I don't really know what's going on in that part, but... The scraping began upon the door itself, a slow and patient sound, as of a claw being sharpened upon the wood. All the while it whispered my name in the voice of my mother, and it promised me an end to all of this if I but unlatched the door. The hours passed in that room, and the thing outside did not cease its siege. It spoke in the voices of the living and those I did not know. A gallery of hosts at the door. It offered warmth and food. It promised an end to the long night, and all the while it scraped at the wood with a patience that was a madness to hear. The fear had burned away in me and left a hard and bitter anger. I was angry at the thing in the hall and at the people who had built for it a cage and called it a home. I was angry at the boy who hid in his blankets and would not speak. Hours passed. "Leo," I said. My voice was a dry croak in my throat. "Leo, wake up." A shape stirred in the bed. He looked out from the pale fortress of his sheets, and his eyes were raw with fear. "Is it gone?" he whispered. "No, it's not gone," I said. "I need to know what this is. Now. No more lies. What is this thing?" He flinched from the sound of my voice. He sat up in the bed and hugged his knees to his chest and would not look at me. "I don't know what it is," he mumbled to the door. "We just call it the Nightman. It's always been there, as long as my family has." The story came out of him then, a broken telling in the dark. His great-great-grandfather had built this house upon unhallowed ground, and from the first night there was a wrongness in the wood and in the walls. A bargain had been struck in that time, an unspoken covenant with the darkness. The family would have the house by the light of day. But from 9 until the dawn, the house was given over to that other. "It gets lonely," Leo whispered. A tear cut a clean path from his face. It likes to play. It mimics people. It uses things it finds to try and make a body for itself. The apron, the hat, the picture. "But it's getting bolder," he said. His voice trembled in the small room. It used to just make noise. Now it tries to get in. The rules were enough before. Stay in your room, don't look, don't listen. But now it wants more. He finally met my eyes, and I saw in them a guilt as deep and as cold as a well. It wants someone new. A cold truth settled in my soul, and it wounded me. The sudden invite, the fear in his parents' eyes, the heavy bolt on the door. You brought me here for it." "No, I didn't want to," the boy's voice broke. "My parents, they said it was getting too strong, that it wouldn't be satisfied with just them anymore. They said if it had someone new, someone not from the family, maybe it would be satisfied. Maybe it would leave us alone for a while." He had led me here as a lamb to the altar. His parents had not gone out. They were in his house and in their own locked room. As they were listening, they were praying that the beast in the hall would choose me. And then the scraping stopped. The whispers died. The house fell into a quiet so profound it was like the earth had stopped its turning. "What's happening?" I breathed. Leo's eyes grew wide. From the floor below, a new sound came, the sound of feet on the stairs, heavy, a football, and the dragging of a dead weight. Thump, drag, thump, drag. It was not trying to trick us. The game was done. The footsteps ceased outside the door. The silence held for a count of 3. Then a crack like thunder sounded as a great force struck the door. The wood splintered and the deadbolt shrieked in its housing. Crack! A web of breaks spidered from the lock. A fine dust of ruined wood fell to the floor. It's never done this before, Leo whimpered. He crawled away toward the dark corner of the room. It's never tried to break the door down. Crack! Bang! The deadbolt was torn from the frame like a tooth from a jaw. The door swung inward on its hinges with a sad and final groan. And in the blackness of the hall I saw it. There was no void. It had filled itself. Its body was a terrible congress of things stolen from the house. Floorboards for shins, rusted pipes for arms, its torso a twisted cage of stair banisters, and within that cage I saw my own duffel bag, and it pulsed like some dark and foreign heart. Its head was the grandfather clock from the hall. It leaned upon its neck of twisted wood, and the pendulum swung behind the glass face like a wild and frantic eye. From the clock a voice came, not one voice, but all of them, a distant chorus speaking as one. Time is up. The door swung open on its ruined hinges, and the thing assembled from the house's bones stepped into the room. Its coming was a grinding of parts, a clicking of old wood and metal, and the air filled with the smell of sawdust and the deep earth of the grave. Leo cried out, a sound of pure terror that was lost in the noise of the thing's advance. A hot and primal fear seized me, not of a predator, but of a thing that was wrong in the world. I took up a glass trophy from the desk and threw it with all the strength that I had. It struck the face of the grandfather clock, and the glass shattered in a spray of bright shards. The thing reeled back. It made a sound like all the doors in the world striking some final and calamitous hour at once. Calamitous hour at once. It gave us a moment. The window, I screamed. I grabbed Leo by his arm and dragged him, for he was a thing of stone. My fingers were slick with sweat, and they slipped upon the window latch. It would not give. It had been painted into its frame. The thing righted itself. The broken glass of its face caught the moonlight in 1,000 crazed points of light. It came for us, its arm of rusted pipe raised up to strike. The bed! Help me with the bed, I yelled. Adrenaline found him at last, and he moved. We set our shoulders to the heavy oak bedstead and turned it onto its side and made of it a poor and flimsy barricade. The creature stumbled into the mattress of its feet, made of chair legs and other things, became tangled in the sheets. It roared, and it began to tear the bed apart with its hands, ripping the guts of it out onto the floor. We were trapped in the corner of the room with the unyielding window at our backs. The sun, Leo gasped, and his eyes were wild. The only thing it has to be inside before the sun comes up. I looked out into the night, and the sky was a deep and starless black. We did not have hours. The creature tore itself free of the ruined bed. It came on slow now, for it knew that we were its own. It raised a hand made of silverware from the kitchen, the forks and the spoons bound together to make a shining and terrible claw. Then I saw a thing tucked behind its television. It was a high-powered flashlight. At last, a desperate thought came to me. I lunged and took up the cold metal of the flashlight. The thing was upon me. I smelled the dust of its body, and I saw the brass pendulum swinging in its broken face. I found the switch, and a great pillar of white struck it full in its head. It shrieked a sound of pure agony. The light did not burn it, but seemed to unmake it from itself. The spoons of it had clattered to the floor. A floorboard on its legs split and fell away. The light was a poison to the thing's very being. It shielded the ruin of its face, and with its pipe aim, it stumbled into the shadows by the door. And in that room began the longest watch of my life. I held the light like a sword, and the beam of it was the only thing that held the creature at bay. Leo huddled behind me and cried out when it scuttled at the edges of the room. We were keepers of a light against a great and pressing dark, and the strength in my arm burned away, and the batteries that fueled our light would not last. The creature would lunge, and I would drive it back with the beam, and we would wait and listen to its breathing in the shadows. The hours passed this way, and a stalemate between the light and the dark. The beam of the light began to fail. It flickered. "It's dying," I gasped. "Just a little longer," Leo urged his eyes. Leo urged, his eyes fixed upon the window. "Just a little longer." The creature knew. It gathered itself in the dark as the beam dimmed to a sad yellow glow, and with a final and triumphant roar, it charged. In that same moment, a pale gray line was drawn upon the black horizon. It was the first sign of dawn. It's almost over. I'm glad. The thing struck me, and the flashlight was knocked from my hand. I was on the floor, and the monster stood over me. Its clock face bent low, and I saw my own face reflected in the arc of the swinging pendulum. Then a single and pure ray of the morning sun pierced the window and touched the creature's back. It froze. A profound stillness came over me. Then it began to come apart. The clock had crumbled to a fine dust. The pipe arms fell from its shoulders and clattered on the floorboards. The banisters of its chest unwound. The stolen silver and the splintered wood on my own duffel bag all collapsed into a heap of simple things. In moments, all that was left was this pile of refuse and a thin layer of gray dust that smelled of the grave. The sun streamed through the window and filled the ruined room with light. I lay upon the floor and gasped for breath. Leo wept against the wall, a sound of relief and of terror. We had lived. There was footsteps in the hall, not of a monster, but of a man. The door to his parents' room was opened. A moment later, they stood in our doorway. They did not look at the ruin of the room, nor at the pile of debris on the floor where the creature had been. They looked at me, and I saw on their faces not relief, nor any gladness, but only a deep and bottomless disappointment. The horror was not ended. I knew then that the plan had failed. The sacrifice had not been made. The thing that was the house would be angry when the sun fell again. I was the one who got away, and for this they would never forgive me. That is the end of the third story.